Hello, welcome to Adventures in Angular, the podcast where we keep you updated on all things Angular related. This show is produced by two companies, Top and Devs and Envoy. Top and Devs is where we create top and devs who get top in pay and recognition while working on interesting problems and making meaningful community contributions. And Envoy, which offers remote design and web development services on a task basis. So clients only pay after tasks are delivered and approved. In today's episode, we will talk about Ignite UI for Angular. My name is Lucas Paganini. I am one of the hosts in the podcast, and joining me in today's episode is the other amazing host, Subrat Mishra,
Hello, guys.
and our special guest, Konstantin Dinev, which is Director of Product Development and one of the main contributors of Ignite UI.
Hello, guys.
Nice.
Yeah, this is
Great.
Konstantin. It's really nice to be on the show.
It's great to have you. Thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's get into it. So, Konstantin, before we talk about the differences between Ignite UI and other libraries, let's actually start by saying what is Ignite UI. So, could you give a quick pitch to the audience?
Sure, Lucas. Now, Ignite UI is actually a product family. Ignite UI for Angular is one of the products in this product family. All of the products under the Ignite UI hat are UI component libraries, which primarily target heavy data uses, enterprise uses, but all of them also have all of the small atomic components which are necessary for you to build a full application or a full commercial website or a customer website, whatever you want to build. So Ignite UI for Angular is, as I said, one of those products. The other ones that we have target pure web components, React. We used to have a jQuery. Well, we still have a jQuery product, but that's kind of legacy, at this point. 10 years ago, we had a ASP.NET Web Forms product under the Ignite UI family. So yeah, is that enough, or do you want me to expand more on the UI component library side?
No, that does make sense. So there is this family of other products, but more specifically, so Ignite UI is a UI library, which has a distribution available for Angular and also other distributions available for other frameworks. Is that correct?
That is correct, and each of those products is an individual product. So don't consider this to be one atomic code base that is then being wrapped for different libraries. Ignite UI for Angular was built from scratch to be Angular native, and we started it with some of the initial versions of the Angular 2 alphas. I think it was at the beginning. It was kind of a pain back then because from alphas to betas and then from RC to RC, things were changing drastically. There were like tons of breaking changes. I remember when between RC5 or RC and RC6, I think, ng modules were introduced. We had to change everything completely from two RCs. And back then I was like, really mad because how can you call something release candidate when you make breaking changes from one version to another? Yeah, so it's a native component set. Everything is built natively for Angular, which then gives us the benefit of it's tree shakeable. Code splitting works. All of the features that Angular provides, we take benefit, and you can use the components natively with them.
Nice. Interesting. So I'm actually curious about what are the other distributions. Of course, we're going to focus just on the Angular one in this episode, but I'd be curious just to know in how many other platforms you make this product available.
So the modern ones are four. It's Angular, Blazor, Web Components, and React. The rest are legacy. As I mentioned, jQuery. I mentioned Web Forms.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the
Subrat.
web component can be used with different framework as well, right?
Right. So the web components, they can also be used within an Angular context or within a React context, and they can be used in a frameworkless context or a library-less context.
Yeah.
So those are standard ones.
Yeah. When you are saying about the last breaking changes, does this new signal and the new default, like the new changes in Angular, affecting the framework a lot, or it's like navigating the framework development in a different direction, or how it is?
So the answer to this is like it's not straightforward. Now, we cannot adopt something that is still in development, developer preview. Similar to standalone components, for example, in Angular. Signals are something that we still do not utilize in Ignite UI for Angular. Why? Because it's not something that is definitively marked as stable. And we cannot rely on this and change the way a component set, for example, behaves based on a development preview, because if there are subsequent drastic changes that are implemented to signals themselves, then we may release something that will afterwards have to be used in a different way or rewritten for a customer context. For us, it's important that people can migrate seamlessly from version to version. That's why there are migrations with each ng update. That's why we release schematics for anything that is supported for from the Angular CLI, ng add, ng update, as I already mentioned. So standalone components, for example, we did migrate the framework to have all of our components as standalone and to be distributed as standalone with I believe, Ignite UI for Angular 16, which corresponds to Angular 16 as a major version. But in 15, we still didn't have it, even though it was available in Angular. As I said, something needs to get out of development preview, and that's when we actually implement it. Now, the other difficult thing is we also have to keep backwards compatible, right? So even though we now ship standalone components, we still ship those wrapper ng modules, which basically import and export the components so that people using the ng modules can still continue using the product in the same way.
Yeah, I think if you have a large user base who are using it, they might not be willing to uh, go for that, spend that much amount of resources to always update. So it makes sense to always have a backward compatibility. But will that increasing the loading time or bundle size to have a backward compatibility, or it's just like a different
No,
bundle or
so we always try to avoid increasing bundle sizes. Actually, in the latest releases, all we've done is decrease the bundle sizes by improving the tree shakeability of the library and other parts of it. But that's why I said so. Backwards compatibility, for example, for ng modules is just keeping the modules, but no longer having them declare components which are not standalone. No, they're just imports of standalone components and exports of the same components. Actually, the Angular material components did the same thing in their latest release. We were done with that one release, one major release ago, and we basically took the same approach that they did, with their latest release for Angular components.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Interesting. Nice. So let's start going into what makes Ignite UI different. Because now that we all understand what it is, then I think the most popular comparison that people are going to make is between Ignite UI and Material UI, just because Material UI is the most popular UI library for Angular developers. So that ends up being the comparison that everyone makes. And what would you say is the difference between them? And I think even more importantly than from a product perspective, from a target user perspective? Like, what's the type of person that would care about Ignite UI?
Well, sure. So material components has all of the Angular components. I don't even know what to call it at this point, but they have all of the basic necessary components for you to build, a website, right? Or a web application. And Ignite UI for Angular also has the same set of components. Now, where it gets tricky is whenever you have to whenever you have to build the UI, which is, for example, more data heavy, and you need a component to consume that. Now, material components do have a table component, right? But if you pull a JSON which has 350,000 entries inside of it, can you render this and have the page running smoothly with material components? And the answer to that is actually, I doubt anyone has even tested it. Now, if you paginate the data on your server side and then use some paging in the front end table, maybe it's doable. But out of the box, dumping the data and having the UI handle that's not possible. Ignite UI for Angular is built for data-heavy usage, not only for the simple, page application usages, but also for very data-heavy scenarios. Now, think about back office for applications. Think about financial trading. Think about CRMs. Think about, all of these types of applications where you would need to populate your UI with really a lot of data. Now, Ignite UI for Angular does this without any additional effort. So, for example, the grids that we ship compared to the material table, they're all virtualized, non-virtualized by default. They have exposed all of the functionalities for easily hooking up server-side operations through your service, where you paginate data or you sort data on the server, or you filter data on the server, and so on and so forth. But also the same types of UIs are built for you and ready to use on the front end. So Excel style filters, for example, data summaries for the tables, pivoting. We have a pivot grid. And you don't have anything remotely close to that in material components. Charts, and I'm talking all different types of charts, financial charts with candlesticks, with lines, with bars, with pie charts, bullet graphs, just whatever type of chart you can think about, we have it. Other like very large components that usually are not in those more baseline component libraries are things like a doc manager. A doc manager is, if you think about it, is an application, right? It's a way for users to reorganize layouts into windows and then dock and redock them, resize the different panels, and put content inside of those. We have a component for that. We ship a ready-to-use doc manager. So the difference is that we just add a lot more components, which are very complex, right? And those are combinations of other components. They're being reused inside, but those are built for data-heavy scenarios and are ready to use.
Gotcha. Okay. And what are we talking here in terms of licenses? Because most of the libraries that provide those very powerful features, they generally have some pricing, right? Because you have to maintain all this work. We're not just like there's a company behind it putting professionals to work and maintain those components. So is that free for use, or is that freemium? How does it look like?
So Ignite UI for Angular is fully open source and is on a dual licensing model. For usage, for non-commercial usage, is fully free. For commercial usage, the heavy components like the grids and the charts do have a watermark. But if you don't own an enterprise license, but for all of the rest, they're not watermarked. So all of the small components are actually free to use, and they're going to be free to use forever, as long as it's not watermarked. You can use it. You can get it on npm.js. The package is available there, and that's why I said it's on a dual licensing model. If however you want to use the data heavy components without the watermark, then you pay a licensing.
Okay, that does make sense, and I think it's the right way to go about this. And why did this library? Why did you build this library? Not just you, but everyone else behind it. Like, was it always the intention to just create something to commercialize, and you just felt that there was space for this, or what drove this decision?
So that's an excellent question. Traditionally, in Progistics, which is the company that produced Ignite UI for Angular, has always been a component vendor. So you would think Ignite UI for Angular is just the next set of components targeting the most modern framework at the time, which was Angular. It's actually very, very modern even now. But that's actually not the reason why we started Ignite UI for Angular. Ignite UI for Angular was started to power a SaaS application that we wanted to build, which is actually an app builder. And we wanted to use it for the shell itself and also for the app building experience, for the components that you drop from a toolbox and then lay out in order to build other applications. Now, and that was back in, I don't know, 2015, something like that, maybe 2014, 15, whenever Angular 2 was still in beta or alpha. Then, we started building the atomic components in order to use them in the SaaS. But over time, the SaaS kind of fell down in priority. And we ended up having a nice component library, which at the time we said, why not just release it for people to use? There was no grid even at the time, because for component libraries, if we started as a component library that we want to sell, we always start with a grid because it's the data heavy component. It's the one that sells the library. And we didn't have a grid at the time. I think Ignite UI for Angular was initially called Zero Blocks. It was called Zero Blocks because our code name for the SaaS project was Project Zero. And then afterwards, when we released it as a library, we renamed it to Ignite UI for Angular. Now, the SaaS, we ended up building, and it's now available. It's available since 2020. We constantly develop new features for it. It's called App Builder. But, it's funny. We started Ignite UI for Angular to build the SaaS. We built the library without abandoning the SaaS temporarily, and then we ended up building the SaaS. And now the SaaS generates applications, generates repositories with Ignite UI for Angular components as UI in the views.
Yeah, as you said
That's
about
really
like you
cool.
have added the SaaS. So are you monitoring something like which component in terms of Angular? I'm saying so a particular component is used most than the others. Like for example, grid is used 80% or something.
No, that's impossible to monitor. Now, in App Builder, we can monitor that, but
Yeah.
in a library that we distribute on npm.js in a private npm feed, no, we cannot send any data back anywhere. I mean, that would be a breach, right? So.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering, like, if you can get insights of like which components are used mostly from a library, then you can get do more things. But it makes sense have it's not
So
ethical as.
yeah, the only relevant data that we have is comes from the issues that are submitted in the GitHub repository and from the support requests that are coming in through the private support channel that we have. And this is still not data that is very relevant, right? Because most of the support requests and the issues that are coming in are for the very complex components, like the grid. because it's a
Mhm.
very complex UI. It has to work in like hundreds of scenarios, thousands of scenarios, and that's a component where it's easiest as a user to get into an issue or to think that you're getting into an issue. And at the same time, the checkbox may be the most used component, but we don't know that because the checkbox is very simple and people would not log
Yeah.
cases for it, because if we have a broken checkbox, then there's something wrong with us, right? We're not building it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's get back to some of the other things that Ignite UI does really well, because we didn't even mention something that, at least to me, is very important. And unfortunately, many UI libraries don't take this into consideration, or they just don't take it as seriously as it should, which is internationalization and accessibility. So I was really glad while going through the docs for Ignite UI to see that this is a main concern that the library authors have, to make it accessible and translated to many languages. So perhaps if you could tell us a little bit more about the support for accessibility and internationalization.
Sure. So I'm going to start with internationalization and localization. So with all of our products, not just Ignite UI for Angular, it has always been a priority for us to ship, first of all, components that are localizable, and second, as many languages as possible with pre-existing strings. So there are the UI in a lot of cases has some default strings, right? Which are, let's say, a title in a toolbar, or a hint in a paginator button, or something else in the drop down of a paginator, and so on and so forth. Grid summaries, for example, like sum, min, max, average, so on and so forth. All of those strings we don't just provide in English. We have 22 languages that we provide, and you can easily swap between those. So if your application targets the Italian population, for example, we do have Italian strings. Or if you want to ship something that is specific to a Romanian market, we have Romanian strings out of the box. So that has always been important to us, to have as many as possible. And actually, Ignite UI for Angular ships the most strings of all of our products. As I said, 22, which include also simplified and traditional Chinese, for example. Now, for the other aspect of the internationalization is not just the strings, but also regional formatting, for example, for numbers, for dates, for what else was like a region specific. Like, all of those things that are region specific, we also need to comply with those and have built-in mechanisms how you can dynamically switch between these without, for example, an application reload. So yeah, I mean, all of this ships out of the box with all of the strings, and it's also important to us that when you build an application, we don't serve you all of the strings, even though you don't use them. So those are served only on demand. They're tree shakeable. The accessibility, that's a really I think this topic is so important that every library nowadays needs to be accessible. Every UI nowadays needs to be accessible, because disabled people, visually impaired people, they still need to be able to use the UI. They cannot just be left behind and not use a computer because the UI is not accessible. And not to mention, it's a requirement for whenever you're doing business with government, for example, because government cannot afford to deliver non-accessible UIs. So we do comply with the WAY ARIA standard, with Section 508. Like, we have all of those things on our website and in our documentation that you can read. But that's not even the important part. So meeting all of the accessibility criteria as checkboxes is one thing. testing with the actual screen readers and getting a feel of what's the experience for people who are going to use the screen reader is the really important part. And I gotta say, I'm actually a little drawn back by the state of the screen readers at this point, because if you try a few different ones, you will notice immediately they read different things. They read them in a different way. Different screen readers decide what attributes to honor and what not. And sometimes, if for example you comply with all of the checkboxes, the screen reader can be really a pain to listen to because it repeats one and the same thing several times just because you complied with certain checkboxes. So it's really important for you to also be testing with the screen readers. And now for our components, all of our specifications for the components are also freely available, openly available on our GitHub repository. They're in the wikis. Everyone can open and read the specifications. We want to be as open as possible with that. And you will see that even in the specification template, accessibility is a major point in every specification for every component.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I think previously, if I remember, like 6 to 7 years back, very few websites had accessibility, but nowadays very small websites are able to make accessible thanks to like you guys are helping small companies with small resources with their package so that it will be easier for them to achieve it so that a lot of people can use it. And I currently in my company we are also using some accessibility feature, and I was there with some user testing, and you can feel if a disabled person while using it and how they're happy because they are able to use a phone or a website. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
pretty
precisely.
That's really good. Yeah, and I know it's very hard to do. So it's something that
yeah.
unfortunately a lot of people don't notice the importance, and the ones that do consider it, they go through a lot of work to make it uh, to execute this properly. So thank you, by the way. It's something that is usually not as noted, but it definitely deserves a lot of attention because it's very hard to do properly. And as you said, if you're targeting enterprise use cases, you're targeting governments, then they need to have that. That's not even just a nice to have, it's really a necessity. So nice. Do you think there are any particular components that deserve a bit of highlight that you think would be worth mentioning them here? Like you already said that um, it really shines on data heavy UIs. But other than that, is there any other parts of the library that you would like to highlight?
Well, yeah. So the library is pretty large. I think we have over 60 components at the moment, and we do try to satisfy the needs for every type of UI. So from the basic layouts, building a form, building a presentation layer for a website. So even things like a carousel component, you need that in order to present some highlight on a landing page. Um, for forms, of course, you need to have all of the different form components for you to build the different types of forms. So inputs, selects, radio buttons, checkboxes, switches, buttons, of course. I mean, that's the most basic one. And then more complex scenarios like multi-select, which is we call a combo with filtering and searching inside and so on and so forth, which can actually take a lot of data points to render and then to be able to select from. We even have components like we call it a stepper. Some people call wizard. that component is really nice because it's very easy for you to enable your users with a multi-step process, which is then tracked, and you can stop them at certain points, require certain actions to be completed for them to move to a next step. The grids, charts, doc manager, those are the heavy hitters, but we even have a small Excel library, and then a ginormous Excel library, which actually reproduces the entire Excel object model. So the small one is for you to be able to easily, for example, export a grid data into an Excel worksheet, and then preserve things like groups, collapse and expand some styles, and so on and so forth. Now the heavy one is you can do anything. You can even do charting within the Excel spreadsheet that you produce. What else? Like, there is really a lot. We really have put a lot of work into every single component. We have a calendar, we have a slider, we have whatever you can think of. Name a component and we'll probably have it. We have really nice cards, because cards nowadays are actually building blocks for a lot of the UIs in a website. Have you noticed that? I mean, it's a trend. People use a card sometimes to even lay out an entire page. So that's really important to have. Date pickers, time pickers.
That seems very, very extensive.
Yeah, I was just curious, like how many developer designers you have to build like a library this big with multiple framework.
So right now, my organization is around 60 people. All of them, on one point or another, work on Ignite UI for Angular, but also on the other component libraries. Now, at this point, probably half work on the app builder SaaS, but the app builder SaaS is also powered by these components. So it's kind of back and forth between the SaaS and the component library. And then the SaaS code generates. It's a low code tool, so it code generates Ignite UI for Angular, or web components, or React, or Blazor, whatever you choose as a target. But so I would say 60 on and off. Full time at the moment is probably around 15, something like that.
Pretty nice.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and also like the way you describe accessibility, I know that you have a lot of user testing and those things are going on. So combine everything. Maybe it's to a user who listening us or watching us, it seems like it's just a library, but developing this kind of a big library is a lot of effort. Like if you just try to design a date picker, and you will see how many variables you need. If the viewport is down, you need to put in the top. There's a lot of things are there. So simple date picker is so hard. Like think about grid, it is like it will take you months to just right. So I just
Right.
want to thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but it's very satisfying, especially
Yeah.
after you are able to produce a reusable component, and then people start using it and actually start using the different modes or variations that are supported by the component. And it's actually even nice when you get an issue. You know that people are using it.
Mhm.
You know that they dug in, found a scenario that doesn't work precisely how they expected it to work, and then they submit an issue. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. So it doesn't seem like it because everything, like the conversation was flowing so easily, but we're actually at 35 minutes talking about UI. So I think we should probably start wrapping up before people start
I
complaining
can
about.
probably talk for 2 more hours. So just
Definitely,
you got to cut
definitely,
me
Or
off.
much
maybe
more than
two
that.
more days.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have anything, Constantine, that you would like to mention before we start wrapping up and talking about like doing some promos and etc.?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I mentioned App Builder a few times throughout our conversation. Now, just say for Angular, the most used tool alongside Angular is the Angular CLI, right? Because it simplifies the work for you. It makes the project setup no brainer. It then helps you through adding new items to your project structure and so on and so forth. Helps you migrate projects. Now, the App Builder is, I would say, a step further or several steps further, because it not only generates projects for you, generates UI and code for you, but it allows you to build your applications in a visual way to a very sophisticated level, actually, because we have things like variable support, state and context binding within the application that you're building, connecting to data sources that have open API descriptions, and then readily using them within the app building experience. Now, Ignite UI for Angular by itself simplifies building applications, simplifies building UIs. Ignite UI for Angular with App Builder makes it like it completely reduces the time for you to from start to finish with an application, and it eliminates the handoffs that you usually have between designers, developers, and product managers, product owners. So if you haven't tried it out, I mean, you guys should. And yeah, I'm open to any feedback that you have for this SaaS application that we have.
Hey, just one question like it just came to my mind that as you have an app builder, are you guys are planning to have like integrate Gen AI so that like while it will be
So
built respectively?
yes, we are. We are. So the thing about Gen AI at the moment is it is a marketing hype for everyone to integrate it, right? To us, the important thing is what would really be the useful scenarios. So
Hmm.
it's not as simple as us enabling a prompt, which will then spit out some things, which in most cases are not even verifiable and testable, whether
Mhm.
they work 100% of the time. So the most important thing for App Builder is that it always produces a code that will not only compile, but is at least to our standards is optimal, up to the level that we can generate it. So
Mhm.
Gen AI is not really there. You have to customize a model a lot, which actually reduces the quality of the results that you get out of it. So we are definitely we are already working on scenarios that we think are potentially useful, but we are going to release a Gen AI feature for App Builder when we feel that it's really something that adds value to the users.
Yeah, completely makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Nice. So let's start wrapping things up. So Subrat, it's been a while that we don't have you on the show. What have you been working on? Do you have any promos you like to talk about?
Yeah, so I like grant came to so I was just chilling and haven't done anything. So, but I will try to promote my channel, YouTube channel, which is Fun of Heuristic. So please go and watch them. I watch the videos. Like, yeah, that's all.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Well, in my case, I'm not really gonna promote anything this time. Nothing new that I've been working on. Uh, and well, Constantine, we talked a lot about Ignite UI and also App Builder today. Would you like to promote those two, or do you have something else in mind that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think I already took probably 35 minutes promoting those two. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, okay, all right. Yeah, it's kind of like saying, "Yeah, Lucas, we talked about this for 35 minutes. What else do you want me to say?" But yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, Konstantin, thank you so much for being on the show. It was really nice having you here, and I really appreciate all the effort that you and all the other contributors are putting into Ignite UI. It is really an very, very interesting work, and there's I can see there's a lot of effort put into all those details. So I really appreciate putting out this quality product out there. And it was really good having you on the show. So feel free uh, to connect and join the podcast again. You will definitely be very welcomed.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for having me on this podcast. I mean, kudos to you for spending the time to actually put those together. That's really beneficial, I think, to the community. And it was really nice to be with you.
Nice. Okay. All right. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.
See you guys. Bye bye.
See you guys.